Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Thank you so much for joining me for the Pretty Powerful Podcast. This is Angela Gennari, and I am sitting here with Chi Okezie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Angela.
So I am very excited. You have such an impressive resume. And you are a fellow entrepreneur. You're doing some incredible things. And what I love about it most is that you are influencing women and teaching about diversity and inclusion. So kudos to you for that. So I want to go ahead and read your bio so that our audience knows how amazing you are. So Chi Okezie is a owner-producer of Simple Networking, LLC. Simple Networking is a consulting firm based in Atlanta, Georgia, which specializes in business networking, diversity and inclusion, and cultural awareness consulting and training. Chi has spent the last 16 years assisting corporations, top universities, institutions, and federal agencies with professional development training. She is trilingual, the author of 2 networking books, Simple Networking and Networking Made Simple, blogs as the Champion Networker, as well as published hundreds of online articles as a diamond expert for ezinearticles.com. Her company was granted a proclamation for Business Networking Day for November 13th in 2017. Congratulations. Through her company, Chi has presented keynotes, hosted events, and created training programs. She has also developed workshops and curriculum in various topics of business networking, diversity and inclusion, branding, entrepreneurship, ethics, and integrity. A unique value proposition is including culture, arts, and entertainment to broaden the learning and development experiences. Additionally, Chi is the recipient of several awards, including the Class of 40 Under 40 for Connect Magazine and Rejuvenate Magazine. She is heavily involved with her Alumni Association and serves as Alumni Counselor to the Campus Life Committee for the Emory Board of Trustees, as well as Executive Committee member of the Oxford College of Emory Board of Counselors. Chi holds several active memberships with the FACC-ATL, ADMAG, which is the Atlanta Diversity Management Advocacy Group, ASAP, which is the American Society of Administrative Professionals, and Turning Point Church. Thank you so much for joining us. As I said, very impressive.
Thank you, Angela, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. So tell me, you have really built this amazing business around networking. Tell me why networking is so important.
Oh my gosh, I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah? Tell me why.
When it comes to networking. Well, I started 16 years ago, so of course social media did not look anything like it looks now 16 years ago. But I felt like when I would go to events, there was a disconnect.
Okay.
People would meet each other, they would talk, and then there was not really, I don't want to say like a method, because I don't want it to be super structured, but there wasn't like a protocol for networking.
Yeah.
So it was just, if I need something, I'll reach out. If I don't need something, I won't reach out. And it just kind of fizzled. So
Absolutely.
I would go to events. I used to be an intern for the French American Chamber of Commerce, so FACC, Atlanta. And I learned how to network from my mentor. I would shadow her.
Yeah.
And so go to events and learn how to network and connect with people in English and in French, or en français. And felt like, there's a real need for networking.
I love it. And I love that you had a female mentor.
Yes.
That's amazing.
We.
Yes. Oui, madame.
Yes. Oui, madame.
So, yes, we don't have enough female mentors. So I love that she allowed you the opportunity to shadow her, because, I say that what holds women back isn't necessarily men, it's women. And so, I love that you are out here talking about diversity and inclusion, and you are talking about networking, and as a female nonetheless, because networking for us is extremely powerful, making those connections, because we do really well in person. We are charismatic, and we can we can be engaging, we can show empathy, and all of these things come across in networking much more than they do, in any other environment. So I love that your focus is networking. So I have a quick story. I got out of college and I took my first job here in Atlanta, and I was working for a startup internet company, and it was business to business telecom. And when I took this position, my sales manager comes to me and he says, all right, so you're going to need to go meet business people. And I'm like, I don't know where to meet business people. Where do I go? And he said, well, you need to go to the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, oh, okay. I don't know what that is, but I'll figure it out. And so I started going to the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce meetings. And I was 23, 24 years old going to these meetings, and I felt like a fish out of water. I did not connect. I could not. Nobody was really taking me seriously. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so finally, I was just so frustrated with the experience. I was like, I feel like I wasn't getting out of it what I had hoped for. And so I started my own networking group. It was a young professionals networking group, and it changed the trajectory of my life, because having those young professionals to network with, it actually became my accidental first company.
Oh, nice.
Because, I ended up with 2,000 people on a mailing list, and they would say, where are we going next week? And what's happening? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like people are depending on me to figure this out. I just wanted to connect with people, but it's the power of networking. People were so thirsty for something like that. Young professionals getting together in a fun environment and connecting, and relationships were built there that I've maintained through the past 20 some odd years. And so, I believe in what you're doing. I think it's so, so powerful. So tell me a little bit about how you got your start in network and in simple networking, and just why this is so important.
Well, I started out as a freelance translator. So I am trilingual. English is my first language. My second language is my parents' language. They're Nigerian immigrants.
Oh, beautiful.
So my dad came here in the mid-60s.
Okay.
And my mom came in the mid-70s, and Chi came in the late 70s. Okay. But I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and then moved here to Atlanta. So I consider myself a bit of an apple peach. Yeah.
I love it.
Nonetheless,
yes.
When I went to Emory, I graduated. I majored in French cultural studies, which my parents still don't think that's a major. And they're hardcore math and science people.
Right.
So this was not what they expected at all.
Right.
But I started freelancing translations from French to English, and working with the French American Chamber and the Consul General of France. So back in the day when we had the white pages, I know some of our listeners may not know what that is.
I think there might be like a whitepages.com or something now that you just use on a date when you're looking up people on a dating app. And that's
exactly. So there wasn't quite, Google was not out there yet, you guys. So on the white pages, they would try people that were traveling to France or needed information about passports and visas. They were looking for the French consulate. But in the white pages, it was actually listed as the Consul General of France.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
They would always look for the French consulate but find the French American Chamber.
Oh,
so they would call the French American Chamber and we would direct them. But I ended up getting a lot of referrals. So I said, let me just start freelancing in order to, build a business, learn about business, make some money on the side. And found that when I would be doing these translations, I could network to get larger audience, clients, and things like that. So that's kind of how simple networking started.
Very cool. And I love that you were, this whole like bringing the white pages into it. That's amazing. That is amazing. Okay. So then you started simple networking, and tell me about, starting a business, launching something. How did you get started? How did you, reach out to people at that point?
Well, I was not groomed to be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Okay, so
I know math and science.
Right, yes. So I did not have any formal training, but as I mentioned, I had an excellent mentor in Jane Medlin, and I would shadow her. And then also being an intern at the FACC Atlanta, I learned a lot about business because even though they are nonprofit, they did have a very strong economic stem. So I learned a lot about finance. I learned a lot about budgeting, especially for a nonprofit. Yeah. And that's really where it started for me. So getting a business license, tax ID, trademark, all that fun stuff.
Oh, I know. I've been down that road. Okay, very cool. And then going to Emory, there's what I love about Emory is there's a great support system there. I feel like when you've graduated from Emory, you've graduated with a team of people who really just become, especially with being on the board of trustees, like you have such a powerful network there. So tell me how your alumni and, being part of Emory, how has that changed or helped you in any way in terms of building?
Yeah, it's been great. And
knock on wood.
I just had a committee meeting this morning and it went so well, but I need a nap.
I know. I hear you.
So shout out to my wonderful committee chair, Teresa Rivero.
Yay! Previous pretty powerful podcast guest.
But yes, having a strong network and being an alum with Emory has been excellent. And it's multiple folds, right? Yeah. I enjoy connecting with my classmates, my fellow Eagles, and then serving on different boards. You get a chance to meet people you would have never gone to school with, or different schools, because there are 9 schools units.
Right.
The other thing is that it gives me a chance to mentor.
Yes.
Mentor up and rising students, those that are interested in careers that are in entrepreneurship or business, or even in French or international business as well. And then the other fold is the business side. And a lot of people don't realize this, but at least the schools that I've worked with, right?
Sure.
They have a procurement system. So you can actually be a vendor or supplier for your alma mater. And it's not just about being a professor or an adjunct professor. A supplier basically means that you're offering a service.
Right. And you will be paid for the
Yes, exactly.
for the service. Yes. So leveraging the power of networking. So talk a little bit about what that means as a woman, as a Black woman, as anybody starting out as an entrepreneur. Tell me about the leveraging the power of networking and what it can mean in a business, because I think that we don't do enough of it outside of social media. So what does that look like?
It's really important and definitely overlooked, sometimes undervalued. I still believe that we are scraping the surface of it. Building relationships is critical. That trust and know factor. And also it's a way to brand yourself. A lot of people don't understand that networking can actually brand yourself. Yeah. And I think about it in the way of how you communicate. I think, and I say this in my workshops, you have 3 images, right? That you can use to brand yourself. You have your written image, your physical image, as well as your verbal image.
Interesting.
So your verbal image is the elevator pitch.
Yes, yes.
So this is how you introduce yourself, how you make this amazing first impression. Your written image can be, of course, your social media, your online presence, business cards, marketing material, and then your physical image, the way that you dress and how you present yourself. And they all should come together and be congruent.
I love it.
I think that, or I believe that's very critical when it comes to networking. The other piece about networking is that I've heard the word on the street, Angela, is that networking is slimy. I hate using that word. They have these other pseudo words, and I have mixed feelings about this.
Okay. Tell me.
Yes, networking can be, it's what it is. It's what you make it.
Right.
I always tell people, think of it like the word it is, network. When you look it up in the dictionary, it means 2 or more computers connected, sharing information. Think of it as 2 or more people coming together, sharing information. You're building relationships, supporting each other, mentoring, sponsoring, advocating, especially now as we're moving into this, is it endemic? I want it to be a no-demic.
I agree.
But nonetheless, we're learning a lot about or bringing to the forefront social causes, ways of advocacy, speaking up, being able to have your voice and being heard. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's always confrontational. You can speak up to recognize someone, or to bring recognition to yourself. Yes,
agree. Well, and I love that you talk about this branding of branding yourself, because that's something we don't do enough of. We identify with our company, we identify with our family, we identify with our, where we live, but we need to build our own brand identity. And that is what carries you through. And then everything else can be shaped around it, So if your brand identity is, I am a female CEO, this is what I do, this is what I believe in, this is where I spend my time networking, this is where I put my efforts and volunteering, then that becomes your brand. And I love that you really focus on, how important that is to build that brand identity all around. So
no, I agree. I'll give an example because I've heard even entrepreneurs, working professionals that work for a huge company and feel like they can't have a personal brand.
Yes.
So I always go back to the example of athletes, right? So we'll use a woman athlete.
Okay.
I love Lisa Leslie.
Okay.
She's amazing.
Yes.
Was on the WNBA.
Yes.
And so, she was on a team, but she still had her own personal brand.
Yes.
And I think about it in that sense, like as a coach or even as a captain, she still wore jersey. And it's not like everyone had the same number jersey. Right. Everyone had different numbers with different names on the jersey, so that when you're playing, yes, you have the overall team score, but then you also have separate scores for each person, right? That's a branding mechanism.
Yes.
When you're able to be a part of a group or a team, but then you're also able to explain or show the value that you personally add.
Oh, I love that, because what we talk about in this podcast is how we give our power away as women, and that is one of the things that we do, is that we become part of a group instead of a person, but you can do both. You can you can show your value in a room. And that's where I think we tend to shy away. We don't want to take credit for things. And so we shy away from that, but it is possible to, have a group that is powerful, whether it be a company, a team, and then also to own your own power in your own space as well, and recognize the value that you bring to that organization or that team.
Absolutely. And that's something that I always push with my fellow female entrepreneurs and working professionals and colleagues.
Yes.
Because it's always good to have, now we're in this data age, analyzing. And it's great when you talk about yourself and the skills that you have, but also making that quantifiable.
Yes.
Is extremely important.
Yeah. Everybody wants to know value according to numbers, and that's sometimes hard. It's sometimes hard. So when you are starting your company and you're out there, you've written 2 books. I mean, tell me about some of the obstacles that you have overcome in all of these incredible accomplishments that you've made, because, I know success doesn't happen overnight, and as brilliant as you are, and as, I have no doubt that you are extremely powerful in every single aspect of your life. Tell me about some of the challenges that you faced.
Well, the biggest challenge is actually my age.
Really?
I never really had a bona fide full-time job.
Okay.
When I graduated from school, I did start doing marketing for a used car dealership, and I only stayed for a week.
Oh, wow.
I really wanted to quit that Wednesday, but I toughed it out till Friday. Right. So once again, parents had no hope in teaching. Right. So it was my age. So I was like 22, 23 when I started doing the freelancing. And then when I moved into the simple networking, I was still under 30.
Wow.
And it was going to these meetings, and people would start, listen now on. When people start to explain themselves, they'll say, I have 30 years of experience in corporate America, 35, or I've done this and this degree and that degree, or I have this number of people on my team. And I would just think, like, I just turned 24. Like, I was like, I don't know what else. I don't know how to compete with that. So what I had to do when I was starting out was to do a lot of things that were not age specific. So you don't have to be a certain age to write a book.
Right.
You don't have to be a certain age to get a proclamation, believe it or not.
Wow.
And you don't have to be a certain age to start a business.
Yes.
So those were the things that I started doing. And then also, going to different groups and organizations, learning from people that were, I wouldn't say older, but more mature and wiser. And then also kind of piggybacking off of them, getting referrals and leads to be able to, do workshops at conferences and different types of associations and meetings. So
tell me who inspires you.
Okay. So believe it or not, it's my younger brother.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And it was at first it was a love-hate relationship.
Yes.
I remember growing up in Brooklyn, and my parents worked all the time.
Yeah.
So when I was old enough, I became the unpaid babysitter. And I was just so, what is that word? Bitter. And I was like, everybody's out, they're playing, they're watching TV, they're hanging out with their friends, they're going to parties, they're going to the movies. And I'm just stuck watching my brother.
The tragedy.
It was the tragedy, So it was, and I use this story actually in a lot of my workshops.
Yeah.
So how I was, and please don't think of me as an abusive older sister.
No, never.
But I would just be like, okay, mom and dad want me to watch you. So I want you to just sit there. Don't say anything. Don't talk. Just see it. And, just do your thing and I'll be over here. And I think about that a lot in society. When people are tolerated and not appreciated. I see you. You're there. I'll give you what you want. Don't bother me. And that's it. Until Angela, one day, bickering, complaining. And when I was in school the next day, and a friend of mine was like, so what did you do this weekend? I was like, I had to watch my younger brother. And she said, that's so cool. You have a younger brother. I don't have any siblings. I'm sure you guys must have had a lot of fun. You have someone that can look up to you. And I was like, I felt so
stab you in the heart.
So then the next weekend, I was like, hey, let's with my brother. Hey, let's hang out. We have some time together. Mom and dad's not here. Let's jump on the couches.
Yeah.
He loves watching TV shows, game shows. So he's the host and I'm the contestant. So we're like doing, those type of role plays. And then at the time, I don't think he was able to read yet. But so it wasn't like in school per se. But if he had homework, I would try to help him. And it just became a thing of, instead of being like, oh, I see you, I acknowledge that you exist, but I don't want to have anything to do with you, to hey, let's come together. Let's have fun. Let's, sing and dance and jump around and just enjoy this time.
Yeah. Instead of I have to be with you, I get to be with you.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. Well, that's very sweet. I hope he hears this and he appreciates that. Well, that's fantastic. So your younger brother inspires you. And so I look at that, the story that you just told me, and I think to myself, how many times do we do that in our adult life? I see you, you're here, we tolerate each other, but I'm not going to give you any of my attention.
Right.
And so that's so relevant, I think, to how we live our lives today, and, not appreciating those around us. I like you, and involved with my church, and I run a women's small group.
Oh, cool.
And with my small group, we often talk about things like, God loves us the way we are, and, and despite our sin and everything else. But we talk about how we appreciate the people closest to us the least. Yeah. And like there's people I meet on a, day-to-day, interview, something like that. And I talk to them in a nicer, more appreciative way than I talk to the people closest to me. And why do we do that? And so we talk about that in our small group and like, how do we fix this? And so we actually went through a 7-day exercise where every single day we challenged each other to give a compliment or show appreciation to someone unexpectedly. So, whatever that looked like. So, and I think that that's what we have to do is, with your story with your brother, I love that he inspires you. And, I really do hope that he knows that. And,
he probably doesn't.
Well, maybe he does now. But, those people around us, you're right, because how many times do we go about our day-to-day lives and not appreciate the people we acknowledge they exist and then we move on, but yeah, showing appreciation goes a long way. So that's beautiful. Okay. So tell me about time, as women, we give our power away a lot, and so, I think we share power, we think, okay, we want a seat at the table, but then we don't own our power when we have it, or we don't know what to do with that power. So tell me about a time that you've stepped into your power and what that felt like, and a time that you've given it away and what that felt like.
Oh man. So, I will use, the example with, my role as Alumni Counselor.
Yes.
So it's been interesting. I roll off September.
Okay.
So it's a 3-year term, and most of it has been virtual because of the pandemic.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's been interesting because it's really designed for in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, they were kind of interviewing me it's like a pre-exit kind of thing, and one of the alumni boards. And so they were, asking me these questions, Angela, and I was being as open and honest as I could, but still being objective, right?
Right.
It's a pandemic.
Right. This is true. Yes.
And so at the end of the survey or the interview, they're like, oh, okay, well, would you like to recommend someone to succeed you?
Oh,
and I thought,
interesting.
I never even thought about that. And I said, okay, let me sit down and think about this. And I did. I took the time, they had certain criteria. And then I took the time to really think about it. Like, who would be perfect for this role? And who would be someone that, it's not going to make me look bad, but
yeah. Like,
but
dang
at the
it,
same time, right. But at the same time, we'll get an experience that they may not have had an opportunity to have.
Yeah.
So I was very, very intentional about that. And
good.
But nonetheless,
yes,
that felt very empowering for them to ask, and then really like taking the time to sit down and really think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was very honored in that position.
Oh, that's lovely. I love it because you said she, so
yes.
I'm thrilled that you recommended a woman in your place. So that's amazing. Okay. So then tell me, as a woman, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self setting out on your journey?
So many people ask me that question.
Yes.
I don't think I would listen to myself.
Really?
Angela? And I think about like, what if your 60-year-old self came to you right now, Chi, and said something? I'd be freaked out.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't listen. I'd be like, no. Even though you've lived it, no. I think I would say, and I'm joking, but hydrate. Just drink water.
Yeah.
Just drink a lot of water. Just because a lot of the things that I do, even though it's not hard labor, it involves a lot of thinking.
Yes.
And it involves a lot of energy. And so being healthy is extremely important. I didn't really realize that until the pandemic hit. And, I had to be at home, of course, and working from home and taking care of my elderly parents. And I was just thinking I had time to actually cook my food.
Yes.
Or, pick out healthy things to eat, because I know when I'm on the go, it's not good.
Oh, girl, we've all been there.
I was like, I started taking vitamins on a regular basis. I haven't done that since the last vitamins that I took on a regular basis were my Flintstone vitamins.
Oh,
okay. I think it's really just putting your health front and center.
Yeah. And you talk about the importance of, prioritizing your quality of life.
Yeah.
And health is a big part of that, right? Because when you feel good, everything else in your life is easier. Because when you feel bad, I mean, even if it's just a flu, even if it's something simple, but, in the middle of a pandemic, nonetheless, things are harder. Every effort takes more. So how do you prioritize? How do you prioritize yourself? How do you balance that?
One of the things is when I started out my business, I wanted to make sure that I had health care.
Good for you.
Which is very expensive.
Yeah.
And, I'm not married. I don't have children, so I'm not on someone's plan.
Yes.
But at the same time, as a solopreneur, I am simple networking.
Yes.
And if I go down, God forbid, or not well, then that's not good for the business.
Right.
And if I do, expand and get employees, I would want them to have health care as well.
Good for you.
I think that's very, very important.
Yes.
Because that's something less that you have to think and worry about. The other thing is, and now these different healthcare plans are being a lot more flexible, and offering a lot more. So definitely getting a checkup, a yearly checkup is really important.
Yeah.
As well as eating healthy, eating a lot more fruits and vegetables. It's a challenge because it is expensive.
Oh my
it's expensive eating healthy.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's definitely prioritizing. And this is something I did, and I'm grateful that I did this, but I do get a lot of side eyes. But I did join AARP.
Oh, look at you.
And some people are like, wait, are you old enough? And I said, there is no definitive age to join. Of course, there are certain services and incentives where you have to be a certain age.
Sure.
But nonetheless, I enjoy reading the magazines. Oh my gosh. They talk a lot about, investing, how to take care of yourself. And this is things I'm looking at for the future. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I'm proud to be a member. I'm proud to be a member.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, using your role as a female business owner, you have great influence. So tell me how you use that influence and how other females in this role can influence others and can use that to make change.
So it's interesting that you should say that because my brother did my taxes for me.
Oh, yay, brother!
And my older brother.
Okay.
Brother. And
he's going to be jealous of the other conversation.
That's probably why I'm talking about it now.
Guilt.
And it was interesting because when he's going through my taxes, he says to me, "Well, you've given over 20% charity for your income."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, really?
Wow.
And so that to me was powerful and influential to be able to use my money to support other causes, to support other people. And even if it's not money per se, I've donated clothes. I've donated time. I've donated services. So I think that's really an excellent form of leadership, philanthropy, and influence.
I agree.
And I saw some type of post, and I can't remember where, but they were comparing millionaires or billionaires and how much money they gave. And the lady, Mackenzie, right?
Okay.
She gave about over 20% of her income to charities.
Wow.
Compared to her male counterparts that barely gave 6 to 10%.
Wow.
So women are givers.
Yeah, we are charitable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's fascinating. I love that. So I have another story.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I recently volunteered for DECA. And, we're in this crazy busy time of our business right now. We've got all these commencement ceremonies and we've just, we're in the events industry. This is event season. We are working crazy hours right now. But giving back is something that's really important to me. And especially when it's young people, because I want to bring up these group of young entrepreneurs and then I want them to come work with me.
And there's no shame in that.
I want to hire them.
That's a direct funnel.
No. So, I saw that DECA was coming to the Atlanta Georgia World Congress Center. We actually had some staff there that, working for the security, doing security there. So I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to get involved. So I volunteered as a judge for the entrepreneurship category. Let me tell you how fascinating this was, because, as a judge, now I have this podcast and I did some business coaching, and I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. And I have just genuinely enjoyed getting to know these female powerful women, these incredible women that I've been interviewing on the podcast. But, we're all seasoned business people, business women. And so, I'm looking at this. Okay, what are kids going to say? These are teenagers. These are high schoolers, right? I can't wait to hear their feedback. It was so enlightening. So when I interviewed the female teams, because there were teams of two, sometimes it was 2 females, sometimes 2 males, sometimes male and female. And so when I interviewed 2 females and I said, we did a role play on franchising, right? Okay, so I said, cool. How do we do our training for the franchisees? Tell me how you would design it. Almost every single female only team focused on, we need to teach them about our brand standards, our customer service, and our, brand standards, brand identity, customer service, and values, company values. Okay. The all male teams said, we need to talk about safety protocols and how to use the equipment and how to do, it was all like a step-by-step manual kind of operations focused. And then when I interviewed minority teams, theirs was, we should be mentoring other franchisees. We should be connecting with the community. And so I was like, fascinating. And so, of course, the ones that I felt had the best answer were the diverse teams, because it was a male and a female, minority and, not. And they gave a better, well-rounded response, because it encompassed all of it. And so, the key takeaway is diversify your leadership. And you talk about so much of that. And it's like, guys, when you look around the room and everybody looks like you, you're not winning. You're not winning this race, because what's going to happen is somebody is going to beat you at what you're doing because they have greater perspective, right? So tell me about diversity inclusion and what that means to a company.
Well, I'll use myself for an example.
Yes.
Born and raised in the United States, my parents are Nigerian immigrants.
Yes.
And so it's always been interesting when I would go to school, because people would think, you're an immigrant. Or if you were born here, then English wasn't your first language.
Right.
So I get to experience a lot of these things that other people experience.
Yes.
And then, of course, my name, Chi is my stage name. That's not my full name.
Okay.
And so, but when official documents come, Chi-Chi's full name is on there.
Yes.
So Chi-Chi that's not going to be on my bank card. It's not going to be on my passport. So it's interesting to see how people react to me when they see my full name, because I have a foreign name. So that's a different layer of diversity.
Yes.
And so when I go into places, I always have to think that I have to be open-minded, right?
Yeah.
Because people may think that I am an immigrant and have certain biases towards immigrants. They may think, or even what type of immigrant they think I am. And so when I talk about diversity in my workshops, it's really multi-layered. It's not just necessarily gender or age. It can also be socioeconomic.
Yes.
I'll give an example. Is that I was having lunch. A friend of mine, so sweet, was introducing me to a lady who worked for a wonderful company here in Atlanta, where I could do professional development training for her team. Okay. So we were having lunch together. So I'm telling her about the business. We're having a great time, Angela. And then she says, I have a diverse network. I said, okay. So she starts to explain her diverse network.
Okay.
So it's 4 other business women that are located in different areas of the world. And she goes on and she goes on. And then Angela, I said to her, well, you don't have a diverse network. It's actually just you in 4 countries.
Uh-huh.
Nonetheless, I did not get the training program.
What?
But that's okay. It's all right. It's okay. I'm not bitter. But it was what it was.
Yes.
It was like, they're all women. They all are in this C-suite. They all make the same amount of money. They're all heterosexual. They all, have children, same educational background. And I said, that's not diversity.
It's not diversity. You're absolutely right. I love that because, everybody thinks, oh, if I have all women, it's diverse. No, it's not. No, it's not.
It's really not.
And so diversity matters.
It does.
Because the different perspectives, the different life experiences, the different ways of viewing things, the different, what is in your heart, with the decade
I'll tell you what it does do. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Is that it really invokes empathy.
Yes.
I had a roommate in school that was vegetarian.
Okay.
So you can imagine in the late 90s, not like here where you have all these options.
Yes.
It was really difficult for her to find food to eat. And it was more along the lines of religious choice.
Yeah.
So there were certain things that she couldn't eat, even if there were no meat. There was no meat.
Right.
And so she was kind of borderline vegan, but almost, right? So when we would go out, we would ask different restaurants to make sure that she had something to eat. And even when we would go on these buffet lines, if we saw something that was no meat in it, we wouldn't take it. Yeah. Because we would think, well, somebody else cannot eat this. We can eat this particular dish. So let's have the spaghetti and meatballs and leave the beans for somebody else. Yes. Okay. So really just being empathetic to other people's needs is to me is a form of diversity and inclusion. Yeah. 100%.
100%. And when people recognize that on a board of directors or a C-suite or, when you're even just sitting around a boardroom table, the diverse backgrounds and inclusion and, different, socioeconomic status, whatever it is, it all brings something valuable to the table. With the DECA experience, every single person that sat in front of me gave me a very well thought out, from the heart, intelligent, insightful answer. And it wasn't wrong. None of them were wrong. The difference was it wasn't comprehensive. And so, I love their answers. They're right. We should be looking at values. We should be looking at safety. We should be looking at mentorship. We should be looking at brand identity. But we should be looking at all of it, right? Not just one segment. And so, that's so important to bring that to the table and to make sure people understand that it's not about checking a box, right? Because I feel like that's where a lot of the corporations have gone. Oh, I've got a D&I, we've got diversity and inclusion person here. Now we've checked the box, but you have to go far deeper than that. You have to really make sure that the voices aren't just being understood, but that their action plans are being implemented and that there's real true value in the voices at the table.
And I will take it a step further is the diversity piece. Some people think, well, if we have this particular group, it's a disadvantage. It can actually be an advantage. And the example I'll give myself. Okay. There was an issue that came up years ago. It was a very faulty mascara, Angela, and it poked my eye out. Oh, no. And I had to go to the eye doctor. That's how serious it was. And they're like, you have a corneal abrasion. I was like, I can't even spell that. I know. So we didn't use Visine. We had to use some steroid-induced eye drops. Oh my goodness, yes. So I was down for 3 days. Oh, yes. And so when I didn't have my eyesight, I didn't have my eyesight, I noticed that my hearing started getting better.
Interesting.
And so I could hear, when I would turn the TV on, I'm like, oh my God, do I really listen to the TV that loudly? Wow. So I'm literally lowering the volume of the TV. And I go into the kitchen and I can just hear things that I never used to hear before. And I was like, is there something wrong with the refrigerator? Why is it making that noise? Is the food staying cool, right? And then the best part was when the mail would come, because I'm at home. I'm not going anywhere. Yes. So I could hear the mail truck coming, and it always, does my mail carrier or postal carrier always come at 12 o'clock? Because I never noticed it. Yep. Not to say that U.S. Postal Service did not maintain their cars, but it was a loud sound.
Sure.
And so my point is that if someone may have a disability or what we would consider a deficit,
yes,
then we need to look deeper into that because there could be an area where they're stronger in.
Yes.
So in my case, I did lose my sight for a few days where
Sure.
I just had to rest my eyes, but my hearing and my other senses were so much better.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important, going back to valuing people.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And we actually have a gentleman that works with me who is legally blind. Okay. And it's so funny because we'll have hundreds of people at an event and I'll walk up to him and I'll say hi to him. And he's like, "Oh, hi, Angela." I'm like, "How do you know it's me?" I didn't say it was me, but he's, it's just the other senses. You're right.
He probably
absolutely.
recognize your voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, and when you're talking about hundreds of people coming in and saying hello to you, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, hi, Angela," and it's just interesting that, but anyway, so, I have just really enjoyed talking to you. So I have one last question for you, and it's one that I love this question because it's just so insightful. What do you wish more people knew?
I wish more people knew that there's always opportunity.
Yes.
Even when things may look like there's only one way to do it. There's only one way that I've seen this done. This is just inevitable. Just really being flexible, open-minded, and patient.
Yes.
And you'd be surprised. You'd be really surprised.
Very cool. I love that. I think more people should take that to heart. There's always opportunity. You just never know. And sometimes the things that you think are the opportunity aren't the actual opportunity.
Exactly.
So there's that too. So thank you so much, Chi Chi. You are just a pleasure to talk to. I've really enjoyed this.
I've had big fun. Thank you for having me. And shout out to Monica McCoy.
Monica, Teresa.
Amazing. Yes, and Teresa. So yes,
absolutely. Two of my absolute favorite people. They're so amazing. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time. And until then, step into your own power.